is Monday, April 15th, 2024. My name is Sam Shalhoub. Welcome to the Daily Dispatch Special Edition. Our guest today is Payman Mottahedeh. He is the founder and the president of Freedom Law School, founded in 1996. And he has been freeing Americans from the enslavement of income tax. Payman, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So let's start off, Payman. Tell us a little bit about how you got started in this.
Well, I'm an immigrant from Iran who came to America in 1977 at the age of 14 to the land of the free, home of the brave, so I was told. And then in 1992, I heard on a talk radio program about this lady who claimed income tax is voluntary. I went to her seminar. She showed me the laws from the federal tax laws, the Internal Revenue Code. This is the Bible of the IRS. This is what they go by, over 10,000 pages of gobbledygook confusion they try to babble you and confuse you with. And it was very clear that the average American does not have to file and pay income taxes. And over the years, I've been able to get that more clarified, that the only people required to file and pay federal income taxes are citizens and residents of the District of Columbia and federal workers and contractors in DC.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up DC, because if we look at, and correct me if I'm wrong, but DC is a separate entity from the United States, much like London and the Vatican are separate from their countries that they reside in. And I would think that this goes back to the 1913 Federal Reserve Act and the beginning of the IRS. Can you talk a little bit about that?
No, that's different. When the Constitution of the United States was created, the states created this new entity called the United States government. And in order for it to be independent of the states, they gave it a 10 square mile of land, which became the District of Columbia. And they gave this agent government 18 specific limited powers, like foreign defense, foreign relations, common money, immigration rules, and so forth. Every other right and power, the 13 states or countries retained. And to this day, the 50 states are actually 50 countries in a union. To impose income tax, what they did is they wrote the law, and they said that U.S. individuals must pay income tax. But in the law, in the definitions, in the federal tax book, the U.S. is the District of Columbia. That's how they scammed us to file these 1040 income tax forms, believing we have to file it and pay it when we don't. So now I can show all of this for free to everybody on our website, freedomlawschool.org. Anybody that goes there, the first step of our 7 steps to free everybody of IRS, deception, fear, robbery, and slavery is in a 9-minute video, follow the law, that's available or relying on U.S. government's official legal websites only.
Well, I've been on your website, and I want to make sure I make this clear for the audience. So if they go to freedomlawschool.org, the very first video that they should look for is called what?
In step 1, it shows that 98% of Americans are not required to file and pay federal income taxes.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, here's a real basic question then, Payman. Is income tax legal?
Yes, the income tax is absolutely legal in the District of Columbia, because that country, the United States government in District of Columbia, they can tax it there. Just like any state of the union can tax their people any way they choose to. And in DC, they could tax their people there any way they want to. And that's what they've done. This US income tax is not the 50 states US that you and I think. It is the District of Columbia income tax. You and I, for nationality purposes, are state citizens, US citizens, and US nationals at the same time. But for tax purposes, we're not US citizens. We are foreigners with respect to the District of Columbia.
Interesting. I mean, when you think about the IRS, you get a kind of a cold chill down your back because you don't know what to expect. I've had quite a bit of interaction with them over the years, and as we've talked about offline, I've got some things that I'm dealing with them, but I have not filed myself in a number of years. And I'm going to pick your brain later about that. But your background is accounting. You're not an attorney, correct?
I'm not an attorney. I'm a self-taught lawyer. I was a financial planner back in the 1980s. I got my degree in business administration with focus on finance, marketing, and economics back in the late 80s. And I got into law because I was so blown away how wonderful the founding documents of America are. The Declaration of Independence, the US Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all of these fundamental documents that create our system recognize that as opposed to the rest of the world, that your rights come from the government, all rights we are born with, given to us by our Creator. And the government is there only to protect and secure all of our rights that God gave it to all of us at birth.
Excellent. I agree with you. And I saw you on another show and you had talked about, they had asked you about you having a license for this school, and that your response was, you don't need a license to teach people. And I so much agree with that. It's the same thing with marriage or anything else. Why do I have to have the state's approval to say who I'm married to? I don't understand it. I've been an outspoken critic of the government since the mid 1980s. And it's only
Mhm.
recently that I've started this podcast, but I'm so with you on that. Talk a little bit about this whole licensing thing.
Well, a license by definition is permission to do something which otherwise would be illegal. For example, if you want to operate a chemical factory, in order to make sure your chemicals do not go hurt your neighbors, you know, you got to make sure you get a permission to do it right. If you want to get a license to be able to inject stuff in people's bodies like medical doctors do, they want to make sure you're properly trained to do that properly and safely. That's why to give you poisons, the doctors must have a license, permission to give you poisons. So what I'm doing is completely God-given right of free speech, association, press, assembly, to share with my fellow Americans, to clean up the corrupt and out of control federal government. No permission or license of any kind is necessary to teach law to our fellow Americans.
I agree with you. I mean, if you look at what the bar stands for, it's the British law system and the maritime law, and they've thrown away the common law. So I stand with you on that. I agree with it. So tell me, what are there people that have followed you, and what are some of the results that you've seen from people that have taken your advice?
Well, I started teaching back in 1992. In 1996, I officially created Freedom Law School. In 2001, I started a program where I help you with any and all IRS situations to legally and safely not pay federal income taxes. And in all these 22 years plus, not even one person that came to me clean without a pre-existing problem and started not filing income taxes and paying income tax with me first has ever gone to tax prison, nor had their bank account or paycheck levied or the property taken.
Wow, that's pretty significant. That speaks a lot to whatever it is that you're teaching people, and I think that's wonderful. So Congressman Thomas Massey has come out recently and talked quite a bit about this. Can you give us shed a little light on that for us?
Well, he just, in a couple sentences, brought up to the attention of American people that we did not have an income tax until 1913, except a few years during the War of the States. And we came from 13 little country states to 48 states by 1913, became a world power without income tax. So we do not need the federal income tax to be safe. In fact, all of the government services that keep us safe are provided by our country. My country is Florida. America's 50 countries in the union. So our state, the country, property taxes, sales taxes, and other local state, county, and city taxes pay for the roads, for the police, sheriff, the court system, also they pay for schools and firefighters. So we do not need the federal government for us to be safe. All this does is makes us poor, fund this beast to become a criminals, fund wars, and now the U.S. government is openly using FBI, CIA, and Department of Injustice, DOJ, to go after Americans, enslave us like it's done in third world countries like Iran, where I came from. And that's why I'm doing all this, Sam. I want America to not become the third world dictatorship like where I came from.
Well, I agree with you. As I've said, I started this fight back in the mid '80s, and I've seen an exponential increase in the power of the government, or the perceived power of the government over the people. That's not what the Constitution outlines. The Constitution outlines we, the people. We are the ones that are responsible for the government, and this whole monster that we call the federal government has grown out of control. And I tend to think that you're right. I think it's what, $4.5 trillion are produced by taxes. Where's that money when we have an $8 trillion budget on an annual basis? I mean, it's so far out of control. But again, people I think are concerned, and I am too at times. If we choose to not comply, what are the ramifications that we can expect?
Well, there is no law that requires the people of the 50 states to file and pay federal income taxes. The people that have to pay federal income taxes by law are citizens and residents of the District of Columbia and federal workers or contractors who travel to Washington, D.C. and get money from D.C. The rest of us are free. And the fact is, Sam, according to IRS's best estimate, there's about 80 million Americans who IRS claims should be filing income tax returns who don't. So let me ask you, Sam, is there 80 million Americans in prison for not filing tax returns? Or have their bank account and paycheck seized because they do not file income tax returns? Of course not. So IRS is relying on the same corrupt major media that sold us on the Trump Russia conspiracy hoax, the Corona hoax, that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction hoax, to drum in our head that IRS is a big, powerful monster that will put you in prison If you don't file income taxes, you should be afraid. File income tax confession draft forms under oath. And on line 37 of that form, you say that you owe the IRS money. That's how they sucker you to owe the IRS money, Sam, because legally you owe the IRS nothing until you sign that 1040 form. Under oath, you swear on line 37 that you owe the IRS money. And based upon that confession, without a trial, because you have a right to trial in America before they take any of your money, they can come check your bank account, your paycheck, audit you, and put you in prison. So we got to stop filing those 10 foreign income tax confession forms to our enemies in Washington, D.C. We can legally and safely defund the federal government.
Well, there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. And I can speak from experience. I haven't been put in jail. I haven't, I get a lot of letters and I get things of that nature. But, you know, I think you're right. We have to starve the beast. And how do we starve the beast? Well, it sure seems to me like there's more and more people stepping up and saying, no, I'm not going to do this. I will not comply. And like you talked about with the Rona and with the other things, it's fear mongering. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure most of us have fallen prey to that. And I'm so grateful that we have people like you that are out there talking and speaking the truth, because if we don't, we're going to lose our country.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And what they do, as you said, they say, oh, the enemies out there, the Chinese, the Russians, the Arab Muslims, the terrorists, out the Iranians, North Koreans. Well, the enemy is in house right here in New York, the privately owned Federal Reserve Bank, the Central Bank of the United States, and their politicians that they pay their campaign contributions to get elected, they in DC, they are our enemies. So we're going to focus on them and ignore all the stuff about Ukraine and Israel and all the stuff out there. Forget about all that. Protect our own borders, serve our own people, and stop having FBI and CIA, NSA, and DOJ go after Americans ourselves. That's what they've been doing with Ray Epps and January 6 prosecutions and indictments of Donald Trump. Is very clear. The U.S. government is owned by your enemies. You have no constitutional, ethical, legal, or moral obligation to fund your enemies. Stop paying income, payroll, corporate, estates, wagering, gambling taxes. None of that applies to people of the 50 states. The proof is on our website, freedomlawschool.org, for free. And you can stop withholding of income tax from your paycheck by your employer for free. It's on our website, freedomlawschool.org. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to call us, and our educators will be happy to guide you through our website and help you see the answers you are looking for to be free.
Wonderful, Payman. I mean, I agree. This whole foreign aid is just a huge money laundering system that's getting shoved around all these different politicians and these different governments. And I am so grateful that we have somebody like you that's willing to stand up and say no more. Wonderful. Well, again, everybody, it's freedomlawschool.org. I'll have it in the links and the comments on all the platforms. And Payman, I just want to say thank you. And I hope that I can bring you back on in the near future again to talk some more.
That'll be my pleasure again, Sam.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sam.